Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Scotland and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last few years, a good few different styles, but I think it is most definitely fair to say that this brewery are best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. Now, the beer we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases. It's a style that I know these guys can do very well, but one that we've only reviewed a couple of on the channel before. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head a little bit west of me here in Clipmanshire over to Glasgow. We're going to go to Yoker to be precise, and that of course means that we're going to have a look at yet another beer from the wonderful Overtone Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Midlife Crisis. It comes in at 10% ABV, and this one is a New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, this beer was released during the course of the last couple of weeks, and it just kind of caught my eye because of the name. I thought it was quite funny actually. But yeah, 10% New England Triple IPA, this one with an interesting hop bill. Let's crack on and see what it's all about. But we've had some really nice examples of this style from Overtone in the past, and it's quite nice to see them doing triple IPAs a little bit more regularly, in fact. So yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Overtone Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add some more to that list at some point in the very near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put your hometown, state, county, whatever you like in there. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up, and failing that you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Scottish playlist along with a number of other things, and that will be getting added to it, but you can of course check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Overtone Brewing. So, as I've mentioned to you already, Overtone Brewing are based over in Glasgow, and the company was founded back in 2017 by Bo Wang, who is originally from Beijing in China. So he had been a home brewer for a good number of years before founding the brewery officially, and it was just the success of his beers in different festivals and things like that, from what I understand, was what kind of pushed him to go commercial and start his own brewery. But the name Overtone is taken from Bo Wai's love of techno music, and that's why many of the cans, most of them in fact, have these nice kind of techno inspired patterns on them. I know a number of people are fans of their artwork. I don't know if it's Bo Wai that designs these himself, I actually don't know. But Bo Wai in the early days hired Dan Miller, who's from New Hampshire in New England in the northeastern US, to come in as his head brewer, and he had previously worked as a head chef but also as a brewer in England, New York, and also in Scotland, where he worked for 6 Degrees North, who do some very nice Belgian style beers incidentally. But also involved at the brewery is Martin Conahan, who worked previously in the craft beer scene down in New Zealand. He does take part in the brewing a little bit, but I believe he actually spends most of his time doing other things to grow the company too. And these days they also have Charlie Irving involved in the brewing, and he comes from another brewery. Originally he was brewing for another brewery in Glasgow from what I understand, but he does have a strong background of home brewing too. But the brewery itself can be found in the New Albion Industrial Estate in Yoker, which is near Renfrew and Clydebank, where my grandparents were from, but they began operations there back in 2018. And they've just gradually expanded the place as time has gone on. But the brewery don't have a fixed range, and they're always brewing different beers, but they were the first brewery, of course, in Scotland to focus on the New England Hazy IPA as their kind of core style. But like I say, over the years they've continued to expand. They've started to do different styles. We've been seeing different kinds of lager from them in recent times. They've done a few West Coast IPAs, Imperial Stouts, and quite a few different sour beers actually as well. And they are working on a bit of a barrel program from what I understand too, but it's mainly been the stouts that have been released from that so far. But as of July 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced just over 160 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and they will no doubt continue to produce more and more as time goes on. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Overtone Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll just let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one a bit more closely before we open it up. So you can see 440ml can once again. This one's a little bit more colourful actually than some of the other ones we've been having in the last couple of reviews, but you can see on the side of the can here, if I don't knock the glass over, Overtone Midlife Crisis. So yeah, like I said earlier, it comes in at 10% ABV. I actually bought this one in the larder over in Dollar again. They also, as I always say, they get a good selection of different Overtone beers, but it tells you a little bit on the side about this beer as well. It says this All-American Triple IPA is inspired by our own All-American Dan, aka the head brewer, named after his favourite band, designed by his son, and of course using his 3 favourite hops from the US. This beer is truly a celebration of our Dan. But yeah, the hops in this one, it's got Citra and Citra Incognito, El Dorado and El Dorado Cryo, and then Idaho 7 and Idaho 7 Cryo. So yeah, Citra, El Dorado and Idaho 7. This is going to be a very tropical affair, this one, I can tell you that right now. So remember, Citra about 14% alpha acid, and a New England IPA is going to give you lovely kind of juicy mango and also a little touch of lemon limey character. El Dorado is going to give you a little bit of passion fruit, good little bit of mango as well, and also quite a wee bit of kind of pineapple from what I remember. And Idaho 7 is about 14% alpha acid as well. It tends to give you the really soft tropical notes in my experience. A juicy mango, but lovely kind of apricot-y notes, papaya, and a little bit of pineapple as well, stuff like that. But yeah, as I say, a nice hot bill on this one. I am expecting something really quite tropical. But yeah, 10% New England Triple IPA, this one, the Midlife Crisis. Let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. Really curious to see what this is going to be like, because we've been drinking a few Triple IPAs actually from Overtone over the last wee while, and they've been pretty damn good. So yeah, I think we can say this one's poured pretty much as you would expect from the style, to be honest with you. So we've got maybe about 3/4 of the beer out and into the glass. We'll put the rest in a little bit later on, but yeah, we can certainly have a look at the appearance. So before the head disappears on this one, we can see that it's poured with about a 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say, cream coloured head. It doesn't strike me as being perfect white actually, although I think on the camera that's how it's appearing to you guys, but I wouldn't say perfect white with this one. It is fading away to be a nice kind of thinner foamy layer in the middle of the glass, but you can see it's got that nice ring around the edge. But yeah, you can see the bubbles on this one. They're kind of medium. It's not the foamiest of heads that you're getting on this beer, I have to say, but you can see the colour of this beer is absolutely lovely. This is one of the kind of paler ones that we've had in terms of colour from Overtone over the last little while. I always like comparing different New England IPAs appearances to different fruit juices. This one is very much like a kind of mango and pineapple type juice, very, very pale. But yeah, remember the colour of your beer is dependent on a few things. 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort ball is also going to play a role, because the longer you ball the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts you put into the beer will also affect the colour of the beer. But when it comes to IPAs of pretty much any description beside fruit IPAs, you don't often have to care about those latter 2 variables. Not much in the way of visible carbonation with this one, just 1 or 2 little bubbles at the bottom of the glass and a few ones heading up toward the surface of the beer. But yeah, this one is pretty damn opaque actually. I'd say that's one of the soupier and gloopier New England triples that I've seen from Overtone. But remember, the level of haziness in these beers is due to the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. That can vary from brewery to brewery and recipe to recipe. There's not really any rules about that. But yeah, appearance-wise, nothing particularly surprising about this one when you consider the style. Let's have a wee look at the aroma then and just see what this beer is all about. Yeah, aroma-wise, this is very, very nice. It's kind of what I would have expected. For me, it's got a good balance between the wheaty and oaty side of things. Lovely little bit of floral character in there. Yeah, lovely little bit of floral character. A good wee bit of a good little bit of just a lot of tropical fruit in this one. This is a lovely smelling triple IPA, but we'll break the aroma down and describe it a wee bit more in depth. But as I've always said, when it comes to this style, the malty side of these beers can lean a few different ways. So I'd say there's 6 elements to think about. You've got the yeasty sort of farmhousey character, the rye leaning grainy side of things. Those are a bit more common in American brewed New England IPAs, I would add. And if you go back to the likes of the Alchemist, Hill Farmstead, Lawson's Finest Liquids, these beers were farmhouse IPAs in a sense, so you can get quite a little bit funky, woody and yeasty sort of crackery character out of those particular breweries and their New Englands. But you don't find that too often in Europe. But yeah, you've also got the kind of wheaty bitiness, the oaty creaminess, the barley malt bread, and also the sweeter side of things. And this is the direction that many European brewers have taken when it comes to this particular style. A bit more reminiscent of the likes of Treehouse on the oaty side of things, and Trillium on the more wheaty side, I would say. But anyway, that's just a little bit of my perception about these beers. But this one is definitely a bit more wheaty and oaty. You do get a fair little bit of the barley malt out of this too. But yeah, aroma-wise, I think this is absolutely lovely. So for me, the backbone of this beer, you absolutely get that lovely little bit of fresh white bready bread crust in there. You always get that in these beers. You get a little touch of a kind of woody character as well, but that's very minimal. A little bit of Jacob's cream cracker, and then there's a lot of kind of fresh, fluffy white bread coming out of this one. It's really, really very nice stuff. Yeah, I mean, aroma-wise in that sense, the fresh white bready character is great. At the back of the nose, you do certainly get a little bit of that kind of, yeah, you do get a little bit of that sort of wheaty bitiness out of the beer for sure. But then above that, you can smell in this one the kind of oaty notes. Now, for me, oaty character is always quite an interesting thing, because in New England IPAs it can usually give you an idea of how fresh your New England IPA is. Essentially, the creamier the oats smell and taste, the fresher the beer is, the drier they are, the older it is. But that falls down if you look at an oat cream New England IPA. But yeah, with this one you can smell the oats are starting to get drier. I think this beer is probably at the kind of 1 month, 5-6 weeks old kind of mark. It's somewhere around there, because you can smell the oats just getting a little bit drier in this one. But it is quite hard to detect, because this beer is that little bit more wheaty leaning, I would say. But yeah, for me, good little bit of oaty character in there. But yeah, the back of the nose, it gets more and more wheaty the more that I smell of this beer, to be honest with you. So yeah, you've just got that little bit of zip. The other thing I would say about this one is that it's not too sweet, and that's kind of interesting from a triple IPA, because quite often they have a little bit of that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing. And you can smell a little bit of it in this one, but not overly much, if that makes sense. There's just a little bit of that there in the middle of the nose. But yeah, interesting stuff. I think that's everything we need to say about the malty and yeasty side of things. So yeah, let's do this. So on the hoppy side of things then, the green component, it's kind of what you'd expect. You've got a little tiny touch of earthiness in there, but the focus of the floral, the hoppy side of this beer, the green component, is the floral character. It's very bright, and it kind of dominates the nose. In a sense, it builds a good bridge with the wheaty side of things, but you've also got that little bit of zesty, kind of grassy character coming out of this one as well. Remember, when it comes to IPAs, there are 3 kinds of hoppings that you can do: early addition, late addition, and dry hopping. Early addition takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That's going to give you a lot of bitterness, and it's also going to dominate the aroma if you use it. Late addition hopping within the last half hour of the wort boil, that gives you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma. That's going to give you a lovely bright green component and in the aroma. And dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, that's all about flavour and aroma. So yeah, again, it's going to contribute to a very bright kind of flavor. It's going to contribute to a very bright aroma, I would say. So New England IPAs tend to use late addition and dry hopping. West Coast IPAs use all 3, which is why they're more bitter, and they smell, pardon me, a little bit deeper and danker in a sense. So yeah, as I always say, just focus on this when you're looking at IPAs, but the bright green component, that's the explanation of it. So yeah, on the fruity side of things, it's kind of what you'd expect if you know these hops. I mean, for me, there's a little touch of grapefruit in there. There's a lovely big kind of passion fruity character. So yeah, strong, a little tiny touch of grapefruit, big passion fruity note, big juicy, quite ripe mango as well. Underneath that, you're getting softer apricot and papaya, and definitely I'm getting a nice juicy pineapple out of this one too. These are all things that you'd expect from these hops. We discussed earlier what you should get from the individual ones, and it's because these hops have a kind of they're on a similar part of the fruity spectrum, it's quite difficult to pinpoint it exactly. The only thing I would say that you probably can pinpoint in this would be the grapefruit would be from Citra, and there's a very slight lemon limey character. There's more lemony at the front of the nose, and that's probably due to the Citra as well, actually. But the juiciness and the pineapple and stuff, that's the Idaho 7 and the El Dorado for me. Yeah, lovely, big fruity notes coming out of this one. It's a very tropical leaning New England triple IPA. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind about that. But as I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think that's I think that's everything we need to say about the aroma of this beer. So yeah, that's it. So let's have a look at this one then and see what it's all about. This one is the Midlife Crisis, a 10% New England Hazy Imperial Triple IPA from Overtone Brewing Company in Yoker in Glasgow. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. I have to say that's pretty damn nice. It actually, it kind of gives you the sort of flavour profile that you would expect going by the aroma. I would point out though, it has got a little bit more floral aromaticity and a bit of bitiness to it, a little bit of bitterness in there. It also has a little bit more, it's a bit more leaning toward the oaty side of things when you drink it. But you have everything else. The only other thing, those are the only two things I should say, sorry, where this beer is different from what you'd expect from them. A little bit more bitterness and a little bit more oaty leaning. So that's quite interesting with this one. So, yeah, so for me, this is a lovely, lovely beer, and quite different to the big Weegie that we reviewed a couple of videos back. The big Weegie was a very sweet and slick kind of IPA in a sense, whereas this one is more kind of soft and creamy, and it just shows you can diversify within this style quite a bit actually. So yeah, that's it. So as I say, the beer gets a big thumbs up from me, but let's just break this one down and describe it a wee bit more in depth as we always do. Middle third of your palate then, so you can feel the backbone of this beer. You've got that lovely soft, fresh, white bready crust in there forming the backbone of the beer. It's got a little bit of a, it does have a little bit of a kind of like flower character to it. It's like a fresh got a really, really fresh kind of bread roll that you're getting out of this one. But yeah, that is really very, very nice in that sense. Above the white bread, you do get a little touch, or further forward on that middle third of the palate, I should say, you do get a little touch of woodiness coming out of the beer, but not overly much. Comes out a little bit more into the aftertaste, but above that, you get this kind of Jacob's cream cracker layer. And again, this is very, very common with this style, actually. Yeah, the more that I drink of this, though, it really starts to lean a bit more toward the wheaty side of things, which is quite interesting. But definitely above the cracker, you've got this lovely, very airy, fluffy, white bready note coming out of the beer. And then at the top of that layer, you can feel the wheat. And the wheat it's kind of smooth in a sense, but it also just has a little bit of bite to it, which I think is really, really nice. So, the wheaty bitiness in this one really is quite interesting, I have to say. Yeah, that does linger into the aftertaste too. I would say for a triple IPA, it's actually one of the less dense ones that I've come across. It's remarkably kind of light and drinkable. It's almost a bit dangerous actually how drinkable this beer actually is. So yeah, above the wheaty layer you start to get some of the oats. So down the kind of middle line of your tongue you get that lovely sort of smooth kind of creamy character coming out of the beer. Yeah, so a lovely sort of smooth, creamy kind of thing coming out of this one, and you can feel the smoother, creamy parts just down that middle line of your tongue. And as you move out toward the edges of your palate, you can feel the oats do get a little bit drier, and you start to get some of the more bitey character of the wheat, or zippy character, I guess we could call it, pushing its way through. In the dead centre of your palate, you do have a little circle there. And it's just a very small minimal circle, and it's got a wee bit of that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing coming out of it, and that is that's definitely the boozy concentration of the beer. But like I say, this is not a sweet New England IPA at all. It's really more wheaty and kind of bitey in that sense. But yeah, I think that covers I do think that covers the middle third of your palate in this beer pretty well. Yeah, let's go on to the back third of your palate then. So, starting to get a feel of this. I'm going to sneeze in a little bit. But yeah, in terms of the back third of your palate, as I've always said, you tend to get similar flavours in the back third of your palate, but as you do in the middle third of your palate, they just come out in different intensities. But remember, generally speaking, you get sweeter flavours further forward on your palate and more bitter and dry flavours further back. This beer's kind of no exception to that. So, pardon me, in the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there. It does almost feel as if it has a very light touch of like wholemeal brown bread at the bottom, but really it's a very fluffy white bready character. But the base of that back third of your palate really is kind of dry and bread crusty, and that feels a little bit drier. Above that, you've got some really, really nice. You have got some really nice kind of crackery type characteristics out of this one too, and they feel a little bit drier. But then you do get a little touch of a wholemeal brown bready layer in this one. I'm getting that on the back third of the palate. It just has that little touch of sweetness to it. But then you get the fluffy white bready layer, which feels even lighter and even taller and more kind of airy there. And you can feel some of the zippiness of the wheat just creeping over the back of that, just over on the top of that back third of your palate. And then you get some of the yeasty character coming out of the beer too. But yeah, the yeasty character in this one's quite interesting. It does have a little bit of a farmhousey kind of bready character to it, but at the same time it's like quite a sweet brown bread, so you get that dense sweet brown bready character in there. You've got a little bit of honeycomb just kind of wrapped around it, and then you have a lovely sort of I think that describes it. So yeah, crackery, more dense sweet brown bread and a little bit of honeycomb wrapped around it. But definitely on the back third of the palate you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together. So yeah, that's nice. But I think that covers the malty and yeasty side of this beer. So in the green component then, back corners of the palate, you've got a lovely little bit of earthiness there, but very minimal compared to other things that are going on. As you move further forward, you can feel the kind of smoothness to the green component, which is probably down to the use of the incognito, I think, and the cryo as well. Cryo is going to give you that big smoothness along the side, but you can feel it gradually gets more and more floral, and as you reach the front corners of the palate, it's just a little bit more kind of bitey in a sense. So yeah, quite a wee bit of that going on in this beer for sure. So that's kind of interesting for me. But yeah, in terms of the floral aromaticity, it does get a little bit more bitter the further into the aftertaste that you go. But yeah, around the front curve of your palate, you get a little bit. It's a little bit lighter and more grassy and kind of zesty, but it does still retain that little bit of oiliness. But it's nice, it works. But yeah, that's the green component covered. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate then, you do get a nice kind of more dense white bready build up in there, and the base of the front third of your palate, you've got the bread crust, you've got the cracker, and then you get a little bit of the bread and the oat coming out above that, and then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just kind of roll their way out of the beer. So at the back of that, at the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a little touch of grapefruit from the citra, of course, and then as you move further forward, it mellows out to give you a kind of bright and quite ripe and juicy passion fruit, I would say. And then yeah, you get a lovely kind of big juicy mango-y character as you move further forward. So yeah, the mango is going to come from I think it's more the El Dorado and the Citra that's going to give you the mango in this one, to be honest with you. But as you reach that middle part of the front third of your palate, underneath you definitely have like a little bit of a softer apricot. Yeah, definitely a little bit of a softer apricot in there, and you can feel like the juicier pineapple sitting on top, the dryness of the apricot, and you've got a bit of papaya too. That spreads further forward into the front half of that front third palate, then you've just got the juicy pineapple coming out of it too. Like I said earlier, Idaho 7 is probably responsible for the dry apricot and papaya and stuff like that. But then yeah, the juicier pineapple on top I think is going to be both El Dorado and Idaho 7. But as you reach the kind of front tip of your palate, there's definitely a little touch of a lemon limey character, and I think that's most likely to come from the Citra when it comes to these hops. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Yeah, more along the lines of a bit of behind the very front tip of your palate, you do get a little touch of a kind of lemony limey character coming out of this one, and yeah, that is really nice. But you get lots of juicy tropical fruits just kind of lingering there into the aftertaste for sure. But yeah, lovely flavour profile this one. So yeah, I think this goes together really quite nicely. Big thumbs up to Overtone for this one. It's definitely a bit more of a wheaty, bitey and kind of tropical, fruity, juicy leaning triple IPA. This one, not quite as thick and oily as the big Weegie that we reviewed a while ago, and I think the one we had before that, I forget, was it Bridge or Cloud it was called, that was also very nice, but that was a big, thick, really creamy, thing, that one. It was really soft and juicy, which was great. But yeah, I think we can round off with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel of this one now. So for me, mouthfeel wise, like I say, this is one of the lighter triple IPAs I've had from Overtone from memory. I would say it's kind of at the top end of mid-bodied. Carbonation is very, very smooth. As I say, it is quite a smooth leaning, yeah, it is quite a smooth triple IPA, this one, I would definitely say that. So yeah, the way that this one goes together is really quite nice actually. But yeah, on the in terms of IBUs and things, I think this is a fairly standard, like 30 or 40 IBUs. I'd maybe say 40. It does get a little bit more bitterness the further into the aftertaste you go. The malt base, as we said, is mainly quite smooth. It has a little touch of dryness the further into the aftertaste you go, but like a little bit of a smooth and creamy character on top. But yeah, quite a bitey, wheat-leaning malt base, this one, for me. And then yeah, you've got that lovely, just tropical, fruity, juicy character that comes out of this one a little bit more into the aftertaste. But yeah, I really like how this one goes together, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one, to be honest with you. A really interesting triple IPA this, and quite different to the last two that we've had from Overtone over the last wee while. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Overtone Brewing Company as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, slàinte, skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out Overtone's social media, and I'll see you guys again soon. This was the Midlife Crisis, a 10% New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA, from Overtone Brewing Company in Yoker over in Glasgow. See you guys in the next review.